Welcome to the podcast. This is really fun today because I don't know our guest, except we kind of are in a similar group. And I saw your amazing trailer that you did that we'll dive into. I wanted to make sure is how I pronounce your name correctly.
Uriah, which is, at coffee shops I go by Brian or Ryan because the spelling and then the pronunciation just gets all too many vowels in a row. People get confused.
That's weird because I go by Uriah in coffee shops.
Nice.
One of the things I love about this new podcast that we started is like we are getting to learn about verticals at the same time as our audience. Like Brian right here, Brian and I make movies together. Brian gives me a hard time because I got into verticals and he's sticking with his horizontals and clearly promoting his latest horizontal with his shirt, mug, and hat.
I didn't even do that on purpose.
Just for the record, I'd like to say 16:9 is the proper format. Okay. So, and actually this vertical that I just did was the first vertical I've ever done. I come from a film background for 27 years. I came up in art department. So doing props, practical effects, armory, set design, all the way up through, production design, art direction. And then I got into producing and directing, and I produce and direct everything from feature documentaries, feature length films to commercials and on and on and on. I was actually approached by a brand new company that they're based here in Los Angeles, and they wanted to make a vertical series, but make it more cinematic, make a very cinematic vertical series. So they approached me because they had seen my other work, and they said, "Are you interested in this project? Will you jump on board and do it?" And I was like, well, yeah, that sounds awesome. I had a very kind of less than favorable view of verticals because generally speaking, you look at them and it's kind of like hammer a light off the ceiling and grab your DSLR and shoot whatever you can shoot. And nobody knows what they're doing and 16 to 20 hour days and it's chaos. But I was able to bring a lot more professional experience into the whole thing. And I actually had a really good time. I had a lot of fun, and it was really fun to kind of rediscover aspects of filmmaking that you kind of realize you take for granted in a normal format, I was able to things like lensing up and blocking shots and compositions are completely different just based on the fact that your screen is flipped. You don't get a wide shot, you have to stack your actors and you have to block accordingly. And you do a lot of like French overs where you're between two people getting coverage, and a lot of Dutch angles to hit the right moment. And I thought it was really cool. It was a lot of fun, because it was definitely like it was a reworking of kind of the normal way of going about things in the film world.
Definitely. Was this your first and last, or is this something that you'll definitely
Oh, no,
pursue
I'll
now?
definitely do more. It was a lot of fun. I'll definitely do more for a myriad of reasons. I feel like I got really lucky. I've heard a lot of horror stories about verticals and about the vertical space and, the long days and the crazy inexperienced crews and the, on and on and on. But it's like I had, pulling from my years of film experience, I was able to like collect an amazing crew, all very professional. I had 2 DPs as camera guys and full support crew. I had a crew of 19 total, which I realize is probably a little larger than a lot of verticals. The executive producer basically gave me complete control of the project in terms of creative control. They handed me a script. They said, "Here's your budget." I read the script. I pushed back. I said, "We need more money." They went and got more money. I said, "We still need more money." They went and got more money within reason. I mean, we were still definitely within the vertical limits, but I definitely edged them up a bit and they obliged. And then they handed me the keys and they basically let me run with it. I did multiple rewrites of the script before we shot to kind of tune the dialogue and make it sound a little less obtuse and a little less like one voice throughout. They were hands off the whole time and basically let me take it and let me do my thing. And in turn, I let my crew do their thing, I had conversations with the DP and the art director and everybody about the way that I wanted it to look and feel and how we wanted to go with it. But from there, as one should, respect people's craft and allow them to do their thing. We ended up with really amazing results because of that. Everybody was able to stretch their wings and do what they love to do. And we had, incredible camera compositions and really nice lighting. We spent a lot of time casting, and ultimately we got some really incredible actors. And I told them, you know, I'm not going to hold you to the dialogue in the script. I said, I want you to make it your own, as long as the intention of the scene remains the same, you know, do your thing with it. And so we would, you know, we'd block a shot or a scene, and then, you know, while they would go away to hair and makeup and get ready, you know, the camera guys would set the shot, and the gaffers would light, and I'd go rehearse the scene with the actors, and, you know, we would kind of improvise some dialogue and kind of fine tune what they wanted to say in the scene. And then when we come back and shoot it, it was amazing. I mean, we were able to really fly because of that. We were able to make great time and get some really great performances. You know, they loved it. I mean, told me they never get a chance to do blocking, which kind of blew my mind. I was like, that's how we do it. We block it, we light it, we shoot it. Moving on. They had never done that. So it was like really cool for everybody to have that experience. And again, to give them the freedom to use their craft, to use their skills. And I think the results show. The vertical launched last night at 8 p.m. And I mean, already overwhelmingly have gotten really great response from people. Just before this podcast, we just crossed the 1 million views barrier. So just slightly under 4 hours.
Yeah. Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah. We launched on 4 different apps simultaneously, and you know, we took it. It was just this idea, and we took it from, you know, the outside in. We made it, and we approached these apps with a completed series, and we said, "Hey, here's what we got. Do you guys want to get behind this? Do you want to put this on your platform?" And actually, one of the larger platforms that shall remain nameless turned us down because it was too cinematic. So it's which I took as I took that as a compliment, because ultimately we set out to make a more cinematic vertical. You know, everybody says they're going to raise the bar for vertical filmmaking, but I feel like we really did. I mean, on every level, in every aspect. I mean, we shot on Alexa Minis that we turned sideways, so we utilized the full frame, and we shot with Cook Prime lenses. The camera package alone was twice the budget of the show. So it's, you know, I mean, and do you need that? No, you don't. But I mean, does it look delicious? Absolutely. So completely worthwhile, you know, and everybody, like I said, everybody was able to use their craft and stretch their wings. And I think it's all there on the screen. I mean, I think, you know, people watch it.
Where can people watch it at?
It's on Drama Box, Drama Wave, Net Shorts, and it'll be released on a smaller app called Drama Now shortly. They're kind of waiting to stagger it a little bit.
What I find amazing is that a lot of conversations that I hear and am part of is a lot of these creators, they're independently wanting to make these and feel as if it's impossible to get on these platforms. But I mean, here we are, proof that it's not impossible. And you were able.
I think it's, it's dynamic, because I think I think we hit a very sweet spot with it, to be honest. I think that it is difficult to get on the large platforms. I think that the content either has to be at a certain level of quality. And I mean, you know, we spent a long time casting. I had a lot of long conversations with all of, you know, the actors. We ended up getting one of our main guy is, you know, he was in the top 20 vertical actors of last year. So that helps. And, you know, I was able to like leverage a lot of really great talent into a thing that ultimately I think our story is a little bit different than your traditional vertical. So it's got a lot of those kind of traditional tropes and kind of things that people are used to within the vertical space, but I think it pushes them to a different level because it has a much better look and feel. It has really, you know, highly composed shots. Everything is very intentional within the space, so it's very cinematic in that respect. I really worked with the composer through post-production and the whole post-production team to really make sure that we weren't too heavy-handed with the musical cues or the audio. Like none of the sound effects are saying, you should laugh now, this is funny, you know, oh my God, it's dramatic. You know, I came at it from a cinematic standpoint where those moments are inspired by what the actor is doing, and the actor is giving the cue, and the music is there to assist it as an additional element, but it's not the element that's driving, the drama or driving the comedy.
Amazing. Brian, you graciously joined me as my co-host today. I know I'm trying to get you into the vertical world. Do you have any curiosities or questions?
Yeah, one of the questions I was wondering was, since you said you kind of came from the traditional space, what was something while filming vertical that you were like, oh, wow, this makes life easier? Anything like that?
Absolutely. There were a handful of differences that I noticed right off the bat. Lensing up is different entirely. You kind of live on a 35 to 50 millimeter range or tighter. You don't get a wide shot because a wide shot is mostly sky and ground. So you have to pan with them. Because of the speed of things, you don't get a lot of like moving camera. So we did manage to squeeze in some Steadicam shots, some Dana Dolly shots, but you're limited with those options because there's just the time to set up and execute that, isn't there. But I think probably the biggest thing I noticed that was different and kind of really cool about the vertical space was, one, you were able to use the same location as multiple spaces because you're only seeing this instead of this. You don't see the world around you. So you don't need as much set dressing. You don't need as much art direction. You can really kind of selectively choose your moments, and you can shoot the kitchen as a kitchen in one house, and you can go shoot, the bathroom as a completely different place, or this hallway as one location and the outside as a completely different location. And so it allows you to be able to maximize the usage of each space like that, especially if you have a location like a house that has like drastically different looking rooms. You could use like multiple bedrooms as several characters' spaces, or you can redress the same space to look like a different space. Mm-hmm. So I thought that was really cool. And I definitely pulled heavily on my art direction background for that kind of stuff to really dance things in and out of sets that, immediately to the eye, it looks like a completely different place than it was. So that was pretty awesome. I definitely noticed that blocking was very different, because you can't block actors in the way that you normally would with a 16:9. So the movements all had to be a lot more restrained and sometimes a lot deeper, in terms of like the way you spaced people. Instead of being like this, they had to be like that so that you could put, you could stagger people and stack them in. But that was kind of cool and it was fun, and it's like, and because of the vertical aspect ratio, if it was somebody sitting across the counter having a conversation, I would get high and I would angle down with the camera and use that reflective surface of like the marble countertop to have like a reflection of the actors in the countertop as well, So it's like you could utilize that, and you could utilize a lot of architectural elements that you normally don't see in a shot. Ceiling beams and like, staircases and crossovers and, so that was really cool as well. Right. I enjoyed that kind of stuff because, coming at it again from an art department standpoint, I think a lot about my compositions. And so that was a good space to nerd out in and just kind of enjoy the difference of the frame size.
I had one other question. The whole cliffhanger every minute and a half, 2 minutes, did you follow that structure, and was that a challenge? Because obviously with old school movies, you don't need a cliffhanger every minute and a half. So what was that like?
It's definitely different because like, like they'll cut an episode in the middle of a scene. It's like suddenly like I get a phone call and I answer the phone and my eyes go wide and that's the end of the episode. And then we pick it right back up with, I'm picking up the phone and my eyes go wide, and then you hear the conversation continue on. Did we follow that? Yes, but not 100%. And when we shot, I did not follow that. So I took the script and I rewrote it in such a way that it was a narrative feature script, right? I rewrote it in scene structure like normally you would. And I shot it that way too. And I shot that way intentionally because it's one thing I noticed early on was a lot of verticals, the eye lines get really wonky. The intention of the actor changes between episodes, even though it's a continuation of the same scene, because clearly they stop down. And it's like, that's distracting to the actor. And that gets them out of their flow state, and it just destroys their performance. So I shot everything in a scene format. We went through the entire scene. And if I knew it was the break of an episode, I would have them hold on a moment for like a couple of beats longer than they should, like an unnaturally long pause at that moment, but then continue the scene. And I feel like that really went a long way in terms of keeping the same energy in each scene, even though it's split across multiple episodes. I think that's definitely something that a lot of verticals lack. And a lot of them will shoot coverage one side without the actor and then the other side without the actor with tape marks on the camera. And again, that's disrespectful to the actor's craft. We really quickly realized that the way to do it was to have both cameras on one side, getting a dirty OTS and a single shot, and then flip to the other side for coverage and then widen out for 2 alternate wide shots, a 2-shot from different sides. And you get your coverage quickly that way. You have both actors are in the moment, in the scene, they're present, and the performance really shows it. We also had a fantastic script supervisor who has eyes like a hawk and was all over eye lines. That was my big thing, is I don't want the eye lines to get weird here. So let's make sure every time that it works, and it did. As a slight to the vertical world, and I maybe shouldn't say this, but every time somebody shows anything on a phone, I do have them holding it this way because that's the proper way to do it, in spite of the fact that everybody was like, shouldn't it be that way? And I said, no, it should be this way because that's how you watch things. So whenever somebody's showing something on an iPad or an iPhone, it is 16:9 and not 9:16. You're welcome.
Were a lot of the actors that used, did they all come from a vertical experience prior, or?
No, it was in an interesting space. We shot at the end of October, beginning of November of last year. And so SAG hadn't yet ratified their deal about vertical content. They were about to at the end of November. They did. I had SAG actors in there. I had, Walker Brandt was in there. She was in City Slickers, and she was in, Star Trek. Had Scott Walters there. He was in Good Will Hunting, and he's been on 24 and a bunch of. So I had like some really legit actors, and then the main leads were definitely from the vertical space. And they knew kind of, the ins and outs, the ropes of how to go about the vertical thing. So, which was, that was key. But I found that it was nice to have a blend of traditional actors working their way into the vertical space, and then vertical actors getting to work with traditional actors in a more traditional way on set. And it made for a really cool kind of fun on-set vibe. Everybody had a good time and got to flex their skills.
Nice. And how many days did you guys shoot?
We shot 100 pages in 12 days.
Nice.
So it was we averaged about 8 3/4 pages a day. We went overtime one day for 2 hours. We knew that was going to happen. So it was just that was a big meaty scenes that day with lots of people. And so that was in the cards. But other than that, we did not go over overtime at all. Every day was on the same location, with the exception of one day we had a company move halfway through the day. So a lot of it comes down to the scheduling and how you work out your schedule and being smart with that stuff. I would not recommend company moves. I would not recommend things that you load in, you load out, you load in, you load out all in one day. You're losing hours.
You said you used 2 cameras. Were you rolling 2 cameras all time?
We rolled 2 cameras all the time. Yeah.
Nice. Did you find moving much quicker to light these scenes?
We spent a lot of time lighting, and intentionally so, because I wanted it to look like a film and not like a vertical. But we had a really skilled gaffer and lighting crew. Our G&E team was awesome. They were actually like the most chill, quietest G&E team I've ever worked with, in terms of everybody was just there and ready to go, and they had their headsets on, and they would be talking. They would almost be knowing, they would be guessing what the DP was going to ask for before he asked for it. So it would be right there on set, and it would be like, oh, I need that little special for the face light, and boom, it was there 10 seconds later. So, and they've worked together for a long time. And, again, it comes down to, when you're crewing up, trust people to do their job and let them hire the people they work with. You know what I mean? So it's I let the DP choose his crew, because why am I going to force him to work with other people that he's never worked with before and end up with a weird mixture of, I don't know that there's a synergy there. These guys work together all the time. It only makes sense for me to have people that work together all the time and already have the language figured out to bring them on. You skip that that first day of like awkward, everybody falling into place and figuring out how everybody works together and all of that crap. So the smart money says, hire somebody good, look at their reel, vet their work, hire the person who can do what you're asking for, and let them hire their people. Get back. Don't micromanage that. Let them do their thing. You know,
I thought you were supposed to be a control freak and try to do everything yourself.
Hey, I'm a control freak with what's in the camera when we're shooting, but I try to be very collaborative in terms of like just working in general. And again, like I believe that everybody on set, no matter who you are, from the PA who's on day one to, you know, the salty old guy that's been on there for, you know, he's been on shows for 35 years. He knows everything. You don't ever know everything, and you can always learn something from somebody. And like the kid that's day one, just came out of film school, might have an idea that you're not thinking of. You know, light bulbs go off and you're like, you know what? Shit, that's a great idea. We should do that. Like that makes a lot of sense. And it's like you have to remain. It's a fragile thing because the wheels can come off so quickly. Like there has to be that hierarchy of like the channels of which things flow. But at the same time, it's like you have to remain open to ideas coming from people, because sometimes some of your best stuff comes out of that.
Yep, absolutely.
So it's a juggle, you know, as long as everybody shows up and is doing their job, I'm into any idea and willing to listen to anything. And if it makes more sense than my stupid ideas, let's get it in there. So
I'm curious with the distribution process. When you started to seek out a platform, did any of them try to obtain it exclusively, or was it pretty much all non-exclusive?
So it totally depends on who you approach and the way you go about the show and everything. In our case, we had the show completely finished once we had the first 10 episodes, and then we stretched it to 15. We started shopping around. We did the first 15 episodes and the trailer and started shopping it around to people. And, you know, and basically just waited to hear who came back and what deal they were proposing. And then it's, you know, you kind of balance it out. And if one person is offering you exclusivity, you know, at a much lower percentage rate, because it's all like partnership deals, you know, distribution partnership. So, you know, hey, we'll split the dollar 60-40 to us. It's like, more like 50-50 or 60-40 to us. You know, we paid for the show. But if you land at 50-50, you're happy. I get it from their side too. Like you're utilizing their platform, their built-in audience. So you're using their reach to get your project out there. So I get that. But I think, you know, you just kind of wait to see who comes back, and then you kind of push back and forth. And a lot of the platforms, it seems like they were all exclusive for a long time. Now even the big ones are not necessarily exclusive. If you pitch an idea to them and they're going to fund it and shoot it, then it's going to be exclusive. But if you show up with a finished project ready to pitch, then you own the IP. It's ready to go. You're saying, I have a product, let me put it on your shelf. So that gives you more weight in the conversation, I think. You know, I think you can go in there and you can have a little more pushback on the pretty strict world that they live in. And it's definitely, it's their way or the highway 99% of the time, but you do have a little bit more leverage if it's ready to go, if it's ready to market.
So these platforms, I'm learning as well, it's a little different from traditional film. And none that I have really heard of yet are really offering MGs. Are any of them doing that traditional marketing spend and recouping their marketing before the filmmakers are seeing?
Yeah, I think they do. But again, I think that's in the limited slot of like, you bring your script to them and they really love the idea and then they get on board. As far as approaching them with a finished product, no. Basically, the way that goes is you paid for production. You're going to take that out of your end. You know, you're going to recoup to your investors out of your split, you know, of the net profits, and we're going to keep our end. And I'm sure there are exceptions to the rules. You know, I definitely, by no means do I know, you know, all of the inner workings of every one of the apps. And there are so many, and there are so many new ones coming out every day. One of the things that I was really excited about was, you know, everybody talks about elevating the vertical. Some do to some extent, but I think in this case we really did. Like what we made and what we put on the screen and what people will see, and the early feedback that I've gotten from so many people on social media at this point is it really looks and feels much more like a movie and much less like a soap opera or telenovela kind of situation. And I think that as the bigger players, Sony has announced a deal where they're getting into verticals, and Netflix has just announced that by the end of April, they'll have an app out that's vertical based. And all of these major showrunners and producers from television are getting into verticals now in the vertical space. And I think as that happens and as these seasoned professionals move into the space, I think you're going to see that the expectation is going to become this much more elevated version of a vertical. And I think that to a point, the audience will watch anything. But I think that if you've been eating a McDonald's hamburger for many, many years and that's all you knew, and then somebody came in with like some really nice steak and said, hey, would you like to try this? And then you suddenly knew that there was that option out there, you're more prone to seek out the better stuff than you are to go back to the overprocessed slop again. And I think that is going to be the same kind of thing that rolls forward in the vertical space as it develops and it matures into, especially into the American market, because I think it's very new here. And I think that as it becomes more popular here, as it expands and becomes more globally Americanized, if you will, the cinematic space takes it over. The expectation is going to be much higher. So I feel like we hit a real sweet spot with that, where thankfully the EP and her team had the foresight to want to try and make something better. And we were able to assemble a team and they just let us go and do our thing. So we made something that looks and feels and plays a whole lot better than a lot that's out there.
It looks amazing. I mean, I watched the trailer, didn't watch the series yet, but definitely plan to this week.
Thank you.
And I mean, as soon as you posted the trailer in that group chat we're in, I watched it. I think I messaged you right away. I was like, oh, wow, this is amazing. So great job. It was really entertaining.
Yeah. As I was working through post-production, I was like, I think we have something here. And truth be told, to be honest, like it's not the usual genre that I work in, which I also found that to be kind of exciting. It was fun to do. I do a lot of dark comedies. I do a lot of like horror and stuff like that. And then I do a lot of like documentaries, or corporate stuff, commercials. And to do something in like the kind of romance revenge space was really fun, because it was definitely outside of my usual zone of comfort. And I was like, and I always welcome a challenge like that. It's always, a great opportunity to try something different and see how it works, trying on a new pair of pants. How do they fit? So
do you see in the vertical world, do you see those genres starting to evolve into different?
I think they will. Yes. I think again, just like I think that the bar as in terms of quality is going to elevate and the expectation for better quality is going to become the norm. I think that as the audience kind of comes out of this cocoon of the love triangle telenovela kind of soap opera moment, I think that there will be more of a demand for different genre type stuff, thriller stuff, maybe some maybe some comedy, maybe some dark comedy or horror. I really hope so, because I think that there's such possibility in there for all of it. And I think that you have to bear in mind, like, your target audience is female driven, 20 to 55 or so. So, it's definitely more in that space, but I think there's a lot of latitude in that space. I don't think, that, I mean, you're already seeing some stuff come out there. There's a lot of real campy horror stuff, and there's a lot of some action-based stuff. And, I think that the more of that comes out, and the more that envelope kind of stretches and the audience's expectation becomes, broader and wider, I think that, all it takes is one really well done breakthrough in any one of those genres, and then people will want more of that, and they'll say, oh, that's awesome too. It doesn't just have to be this love story about this down and out lady who gets swept off her feet, or she's in love with a vampire, or, not that there's anything wrong with those stories, but there's such a broad category. I'd like to see something like Chinatown remade, some like film noir, murder mystery type of situation. I think that there's a lot of potential for stuff like that. And I also think that the cool thing about the vertical space that is lacking in the film world right now is it's expeditious in terms of, like, you can turn it around quickly and immediately go to market with it and immediately get a ton of views on it, which is great for your investors. but also you can try things out, and the budgets aren't so high that, you're risking $5 million on a questionable idea. You're risking, $150,000 to $300,000 on a questionable idea. Odds are you'll probably still recoup that money. You might not make, $1 billion off of it if it's, too fringe or too out of the norm, but there's possibility there. It's like the middle class of filmmaking has fallen out over the last bunch of years. And so it's nice to see that kind of take shape in this space, even though it's a different space. That's been the nature of filmmaking for as long as I've been in the game. I mean, I went from shooting everything on film, running stuff to labs, to digital cameras. Oh my God, they'll never take over film. And then it's like, oh my God, now we have film look that we can put on a digital camera. And, and now it's like, what the hell are you doing? You're turning it sideways. That's not how it's supposed to be shot. And it's like, no, it's not. But also, like, why not? Like everybody has one of these in their hand. Every single human being. You don't have to sit down at a TV to watch it. It's in your pocket. You have 5 minutes while you're waiting for the bus. You can watch 2 episodes right there. I was chatting with a lady earlier today on messaging. She was like, I started watching your show at breakfast, and then I realized I was going to be late to my appointment, so I had to stop watching. And then I sat in the parking lot after my appointment and watched the rest in the grocery store parking lot because I wanted to know what happened. And I'm just like, that's awesome. Like, like you can't, like, they had to know. And it's like, that's incredible. You can't get that with anything else just because you can't. You have to go home and sit back in front of the TV or the computer to do that. It's all changing.
Here's the reverse of the question I asked earlier. What was something you missed while shooting vertically that you missed from the old school horizontal approach?
All of the storytelling that you can get into the shot. I go back to this all the time. I came up as an art director. I spent many hours in pre-production on every show that I did. I did many TV shows and 17 or 18 feature films, and you spend a lot of time figuring out how to tell the story with the color of the drapes and the different props in the room and the things that you put around. And you set the scene and you set the tone with that. And in this space, you don't get to do that because a lot of the shots are like this, and maybe you get a little bit wider. But there's not a lot of stuff behind them. And there's not a lot of there's no sweeping shot of establishing the area. And there's no... it's just, you don't get that. So I definitely miss that. You start with the inciting incident. There's no establishing of the characters before the inciting incident. So it's like you turn it on at the car crash instead of dude's, happily married and he's going to work and he's got a great family and then he has a car crash. So you miss that too. You don't get time to really dive into the subtle nuance with the actors and let the scene and the emotion of the scene drive just based on their reaction or their non-reaction to something. You get a bit of that, but it's like the pace is just faster. The timing is different. And so I missed that as well. But coming from that, I was able to work some of that in. I describe it as that concentrated orange juice that you get and you keep it in the freezer and you open it up and you add 3 cans and boom, you have orange juice. It's kind of like that. Like a film would be with the water. This is without the water. This is that can of concentrated orange juice. So you distill all of the extra off and it's just that,
So probably less B-roll, all...
Lot less B-roll. Yeah. And there's no time for it. Your crew, I mean, your crew is hustling in and out of situations. You're lucky if you get a 3-to-1 shooting ratio. And thankfully, can't say enough about pre-production, but thankfully we had a great casting agent and she pulled amazing actors and we ended up getting really dedicated, really cool actors that loved the space and loved the story and ran with it and they nailed it. And that enabled us to make our days and not waste extra time. And again, I also do a lot of editing. And so I come from that space with my storytelling that I know what I want in the shot. And I'm not going to ask for one more for safety. And I'm not going to shoot a bunch of shit that I'm never going to use. So it was just I knew the scene and how I needed to stitch the scene before we shot it. And so we would shoot what we needed and move on. There were multiple times in which my script supervisor would be like, are you sure that's going to cut together? And I'm like, yeah, trust me. I literally see it. We have it. We can move on. She's like, okay. No, I don't want you coming back to me. And I said, if I come back to you after post-production, I will own the fact that you told me so. But thankfully that didn't happen. You hear me, Penny? That didn't happen. Even the fight sequences, I was like, no, I know if he comes at him like this, and then we cut to this shot out here, and it's going to stitch together. It's going to work. Trust me. And it did.
Did you find that process actually a little bit easier with a vertical? I've noticed from watching them that sometimes the continuity doesn't matter as much. And I don't know if that's just the style of them or if it's just acceptable in that world.
I think it's somewhat acceptable. And I mark that up to a tough choice in the post-production process. I mark that up to, we shot fast and we didn't get it. And how are we going to solve this problem? It is a thing in the vertical space. I don't think it's intentionally a thing in the vertical space. I made certain to, not have that continuity issue. Like if the glass was half empty when you were drinking from it, it's still half empty. It's not jumping around. It's not in the left hand, then in the right hand. This guy's not over here, then over here. That drives me crazy in movies. That kind of stuff drives me nuts. That and lighting in car scenes drive me insane. You're in the car and it's like this light coming up from the dashboard. It's like, dude, what is that, a flying saucer? What's going on in there? Like you're in a car at night. It should be dark. So personal pet peeves were brought in.
That's definitely a pet peeve of mine, the bright light in a car at night. Oh, man.
And you see it on like big movies and you're like, dude, like, oh man. It's not that hard to dial it down. Like just you look at the monitor and you're like, man, there's this sunbeam kicking off his face from somewhere in the dashboard. And it's like, come on now. 5 minutes and light it properly. Like you got Brad Pitt in the car, for Christ's sake. Light his face properly. Yeah. It's all the little things, but nobody sees that stuff. That's like filmmakers pick on that stuff. Nobody else notices.
Yeah.
I see reflections in glass all the time. I'm like, oh God, you can see the boom up in the glass,
Or when they
watching movies with me because I'm breaking it down and analyzing it on a level where
100%,
like,
It's not fun to watch a movie with you. I don't care where the camera position is right now.
Always. When a car pulls up and we're pointing out the reflection in the paint and they're like, where?
Exactly.
Right there.
Look, you can see the dolly grip pushing past in the glass right there. They didn't angle the door properly. It's like, yep.
So do you have any plans for another vertical? Or
Absolutely. Yeah. I'm already in talks with this same company about working on another one. We're just looking for the right script. And then I'm also, I'm in talks with a couple other people I've got a couple writer friends that we're developing a few concepts, and we're going to take them out. And again, we're going to try and go with the third party, independent funding, make it and sell it, rather than bring it to the big boys to pay for it. It just seems like the way to go in the space.
Yeah, I agree. And one of the things that I've kind of noticed in this space that's a little shocking, and I'm sure it will change, is I know a few people, they've been fortunate enough to, as far as you can call selling your script or idea to these big boys, when they take it over, they now have the rights to everything.
Yeah, it's a flat
the sequels, buyout. Everything.
It's a buyout. They own the IP. It's day play. You write the story and you sell the sequel. You sell everything off. They own 100% in perpetuity. That's fine, and that'll keep your lights on. But also, like in the long run, in the film game, if you don't own your project, you're not making any money. And if you have the wherewithal, if you have the ability, if you have the space, I've raised hundreds of thousands of dollars for documentary films and for other movies and projects. Why not for a vertical? Why not do it for a vertical and own the IP? Get it out there and see how it does. Plus, if you independently finance, you have a lot more creative control.
Mm-hmm.
There's nobody kind of looming over your shoulder, making sure that everything fits within their little predisposed packaging setup, and that can help and that can hurt. But at the end of the day, coming from a film background, like I'm a filmmaker, I'm an artist and a storyteller, and I want to tell a story that I want to tell. I don't want to tell your story, or if I want to tell your story, I want to do it because I like your story but I want to tell it in my way. Here, show up and do this. It's like, that's, if I want to do that, I'll take a commercial job.
Mhm.
And those are fun and they're great. But that's what that is. The agency is over your shoulder and that whole team and you don't have the creative control. And so when it's a fun space like this and there's a lot less money on the line and you're not risking these massive budgets and you don't have a crew of 100 people, you can take a little bit more liberty. You can take the space and you can take the time to have fun and create something cool and something different. So, and that's what's exciting about it.
Is there a film or filmmaker that has inspired you, like with making this and just kind of in general? Just be curious to know.
Oh, in general, I would go like Ridley Scott, Coppola. Start talking about those guys. Blade Runner is, the most inspirational movie of all time. Show me a movie that hasn't ripped that film off. You know what I mean? You look at The Godfather or you look at, any of his movies and, they're insane. Again, it's like the beauty of the storytelling is not necessarily what they're saying or what they're doing, and it's what he's showing within the frame. If you study any of those guys, it's like a masterclass on, filmmaking, and storytelling through a visual medium. Werner Herzog, unbelievable, totally quirky and weird, but like it's all there. He doesn't even need dialogue in his movies, and it's like there's a huge story there. There's so many amazing filmmakers, and there continue to be so many. It's like every once in a while you throw on a movie and you're just like, man, that was like really cool, and I don't even know why yet. Like I got to watch it again to figure out why that's so great. Like, but there's something so great about that. Something just hits a little different, and that's what I mean within the vertical space. I think that it's just getting to that point where it's just about to kind of come beyond the rinse and repeat expectations, and it's going to come to that space where people are going to start having a voice in it, having a voice within the space, and presenting new ideas to the audience that people are going to be like, they're either going to love or they're going to hate. Bad press is good press too, I guess.
I do agree. I do believe these verticals are going to get elevated, and not to take away anything from the directors that have been doing this, because I think a lot of them have been doing a great job, but more people like yourself that are seasoned and are coming into the space that have that experience and that want to bring maybe an elevated experience and cinematic look to these, it's just going to make them better and better. I think what they've been doing so far has been amazing. But it is, you can't ignore the fact that I was listening to a podcast the other day, and this one person had directed, I think, 3 or 4 of verticals already. And they said, well, what did you do? And she's like, well, a year ago, I was interning on a short films, so you have these new people, and it's been wonderful. It's given them these opportunities to come in to a space and direct, but there hasn't been a ton of seasoned directors. There's been a handful, but not a lot. But I feel like more are coming into this space now.
Absolutely. And again, I think that plays back into, I think that's just going to take it to the next level,
Yes.
I'm all about people getting great experience and being able to like stretch their wings. But I also believe that there's real merit in doing your time behind the lines before you put on the director hat. Everybody who's shot a YouTube video shouldn't necessarily call themselves a director of photography, and not to say that you shouldn't aspire to be one, but there's a whole lot of knowledge that's involved with that. And it's not a crown that one should easily throw on and say, I'm that guy now. You got to be careful, and there's no harm in make mistakes. You learn from mistakes. You learn more from mistakes than you do from successes. I think there really is something to be said about experiencing filmmaking and being on set and being around that and really paying attention and soaking it up. I've worked almost every aspect of the film process. And I find that to be invaluable, because I know that when I'm directing or I'm producing a show and I ask somebody to do something, I ask the art department, can we move the wall back 3 feet and we're going to swing camera this way now? I know what's involved in that request. I know that that's going to equal X amount of money, X amount of time. That's going to delay everything in production. That's going to eat these assets up. So I think about that decision before I pass that down the line to them. Having that knowledge and having the ability to think that way goes a long way, especially in the vertical space, which I would attune it to like a real gritty indie film. You're moving fast. People are wearing multiple hats. You don't get to sit down a lot. You're not doing 12 takes of anything. As soon as you're ready to move on, you're moving on. Like we had the tripods were on wheels, so we could swing them around. You know what I mean? So it's like a fast-paced indie film, you know? And you're lucky if you get to visit Crafty. When seconds count like that, and not minutes, but seconds count, the more knowledge you have and the more foresight you have in terms of what you're asking other departments to do, the better off you're going to be. So do your time behind the lines, kids. Start out as a TA. It sucks. You're the backbone of production and you're the lowest rung on the ladder. But you know what? You can't get to the second rung if you don't have a first rung. There's no way to step up from there. And it's invaluable experience to sit around and soak up the film while you're waiting to empty a trash can or you're locking up a set. You watch what everybody's doing, look at them, learn from them, ask questions, be thirsty for information. That's going to make you a more valuable asset down the line. And have a good attitude, man. I'm much more likely to hire somebody with a good attitude on set that's less skilled than like the really skilled guy who just sucks to be around.
Huh.
You know what I mean? Like that'll get you so far. And then people don't want to work with you because it's like you suck to be around. You're just always pissed off and angry and waiting for lunch or when do we go home? Oh, God, they want to add another shot? Yeah. And they're paying everybody to be here. They want to add a shot.
Yeah, good attitude is so important. Dude. And I agree that the more you know about all the different things that go into filmmaking, the better you'll be at the thing that is your thing. But the more you know it, like I found once I learned writing, it made me a better actor. Knowing acting makes you a better writer. Knowing writing and acting makes you a better director. Knowing editing makes you a better director, and so on and so forth. So I very much agree with that.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I mean, know all of the tools, even if you don't use them all, know what they do, you know? And I've taken acting classes not because I want to act, but because I want to know the language that the actors need to hear so that I can speak with them when I'm directing them. I want to know what they're looking for. I don't want to tell them, I don't want to recite the line to them and have them do, no, they're out of their head then. I want to tell them what intention they have behind the scene and let them act. And I know that because I've taken acting classes on it, specifically to learn how to speak to them about it. And on and on and on. If you know how to hang a light, if you know how to rig something, if you know how to, set up a camera, you know what your ask is. Can we change from the tripod to the steady cam right now? Like, no, dude, that takes an hour.
Yeah.
That takes an hour to balance that and get that ready to go. So if you have that hour, ask for that. If not, start your day with that. Let your team know that you're going to start your day with that so they can prep for it. Smart things like that save you in the end. You'll save your neck that way. You set yourself up for success or failure. And the more knowledge you have, the better off you are. So,
amen.
I could go on about it all day long. I can't say enough about it. I go to these networking events and these kids ask me, like, how can they get involved in Hollywood? I said, go volunteer on somebody's project, man. Show up and work like you're getting paid. And guess what? You're the guy they're going to call when they do have money to pay somebody. They're not going to call the guy that sits around with his hands in his pockets checking his phone all day long. They're going to call the guy that was always ready to go, that wanted to be there.
And had a good attitude.
Yeah, and had a good attitude. Yeah, exactly. You were actually enjoying the fact that you're on set getting to play make-believe for a living. Like, holy shit, that's what we get to do? We get to pretend things all day and film them? We're making movies? How rad is that? Like... I always say, like, I'm not working when I'm working. I'm playing. I'm having a great time, man. I'm working when I'm looking for the next job. That's the work of it. The work of it is finding the next project and convincing everybody to get on board and finding the money and all that. That's the work. When you're on set, that's like your moment of zen. That's like your, you got a team that wants to play with and make this magic come off the page and onto the screen that people are going to enjoy, and you get to see the end result. That shit is amazing. Like that's the only reason to do any of this. Yeah, watching a movie at a festival or on a screen or reading the comments and people, oh man, this is so cool. That's amazing. That's the payoff, man. That's why you That's why you get up at 3 a.m. and you're wearing wet socks all day long because it was raining outside, and on and on and on. You're eating a ham sandwich at 3 a.m. because you're so tired you can't even make anything else or whatever. That's all just so you can get to that moment where everybody's standing up in the theater and clapping as the credits roll, and you're like, hell yeah, man, we made this. Like, the whole team put this together. There it is. We just brought all these people to that world for an hour and a half or whatever. That's the good stuff.
Heck yeah.
So
getting all fired up over here.
Brian's like, let's go film.
All right, guys, I got how far away are you? I got here.
We'll make a movie today.
I'll have the camera built by the time you get here.
If you could give one bit of advice, so let's take Brian, for example. Let's put Brian in the hot seat. Brian hasn't made a vertical yet, claims he never will, but I don't believe him. But if Brian miraculously one day says, Dominic, I want to make a vertical, what is the one piece of advice you would give to somebody that's never made a vertical but has experience in horizontals?
I would say have fun with it and take as much as you know from normal filmmaking into it as you possibly can, and rely on those strengths, but be flexible and be ready to adapt to the different framing, because you'll need to, because some things will work very well and some things not so much at all. You have to be open to finding a different way to solve that same problem as it comes up. When I went into it and I embraced that challenge as, okay, here's what we're going to do, and let's find out how we do it. And I found it to be really fun, actually, because there were moments where we were standing around for a little while trying to figure out exactly how to get what I wanted to get in those moments. It's like that problem solving with your team is kind of part of the fun too. As long as you recognize that it's a different thing, it's a blood orange, not a regular orange. They're in the same citrus family, but it's not the same piece of fruit. So as long as you recognize that it's a different thing and you embrace that, you can have a lot of fun with it.
Never say never, Dom. Never say never.
Well, yeah. And also, and I guess I hate to say it but on some level, it's like you also there's comfort in the fact that maybe the bar is a little low and it's not the hardest thing to jump over. So even if it doesn't come off exactly how you wanted it to, you're not up against the Scorseses and the De Palmas of the world. So there is a little bit of fluctuation and a little bit of leeway there in terms of that.
Very true. So one more time, the name of your series and the platforms to watch it.
So it's called BillionHeir's Obsession. It's BillionHeir, like HEIR', and it's on Drama Box, Drama Wave, Drama Now, and NetShort. And get out there and watch it. It's 111 minutes, 58 episodes. It's a lot of fun. And we have a lot of really great actors in it. Everybody behind the camera really brought it as well. So everybody's proud of the project.
Congratulations. I can't wait to watch it. You just watched a trailer and you'll run to watch the series. Let's do it. Here's a trailer.
Hey. Bro, don't tell me you actually took her home that night.
Come on, you really have to ask?
Sir, Vanderbilt Group's under attack. Get Goldman and Morgan on the line. We're buying back stocks. Now, 30 minutes to draft a lawsuit. If they smeared us, I want them in court.
You're just a rebound.
I heard you're newly single and might need a new boyfriend.
Hello, Ethan. Do not tell me you are still enamored with that little tramp.
Harvey, I need your help.
Cheers, brother. I guess we both have good taste.
You're gonna regret this!
That's enough!
Sir, you better come back right away. Kira's gone.
Ethan!
Thank you so much for joining us today. And
very nice to meet you. I look forward to checking out the movie, The Vertical, and, really had fun chatting with you.
Yeah, it was great talking to you guys, and thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it.